Imagine waking up every day, doing everything you're supposed to do, and still feeling like something is missing. Not sadness, not failure, just a quiet emptiness you can't explain. What if I told you, this feeling isn't your fault? You're not lost, you're just following a system you were never taught to understand. Because the truth is, your life isn't controlled by your goals, it's controlled by your needs. Every decision you make, what you chase, what you avoid, what you settle for, is being silently directed by something deeper inside you. And the scariest part? You think it's your choice. Some people chase money, believing it will finally make them feel secure. Some chase validation, trying to fill a gap they don't understand. And some keep moving forward, without even knowing what they're actually searching for. Different lives, different paths, but the same invisible pattern. A pattern that decides how high you rise and where you get stuck. This is why two people with the same opportunities end up living completely different lives. One breaks through. The other stays exactly where they started. Not because of talent. Not because of luck. But because of what's controlling them, beneath the surface. And until you see it, you will keep repeating the same thoughts, the same choices, the same life. Psychologist Abraham Maslow discovered something most people still don't understand. You are not driven by what you want, you are driven by what you're missing. And until those missing pieces are clear, you are not in control. You are reacting. You are adapting. You are stuck. But here's the question that changes everything. What if the reason you feel this emptiness is not because your life is wrong, but because you're trying to build it from the wrong level? You don't feel lost for no reason. There is a structure behind it. A system quietly running your life without you even noticing. Every human being is climbing something. Not a visible ladder, not something you can touch, but a psychological ladder hidden inside your mind. Maslow called it a hierarchy. But in reality, it behaves like a control system. At the very bottom are your most basic needs. Food, rest, safety. And here's the truth most people ignore. If these don't feel secure, your mind will not let you focus on anything higher. You can try to chase success, you can try to stay motivated, but your brain will quietly pull you back into survival mode. That's why you feel distracted, even when you want to focus. That's why you feel anxious, even when nothing is wrong. Because deep inside, your mind doesn't feel safe enough yet. And this is where it becomes dangerous. Because the brain doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about stability. It will sacrifice your growth just to protect your current state. Look at your life. The risks you avoid, the decisions you delay, the opportunities you ignore, are they really your choices? Or are they being controlled by something deeper you haven't fulfilled yet? Most people never ask this. They think they need more discipline, more motivation, but the real problem is hidden. They are trying to climb higher while standing on an unstable base. And no matter how hard they try, they fall back. Again. And again. And again. Because you can't build a powerful life on a weak foundation. Maslow didn't just explain human needs. He revealed a pattern. A pattern that silently decides how far you can go. And until you understand where you actually stand, you will keep chasing a version of life that was never available to you in the first place. Not because you're incapable, but because your mind is protecting you from something you still don't see. There is something strange about human life. Two people, same world, same opportunities, and yet, completely different outcomes. One rises. The other stays stuck. Why? It's not intelligence. It's not luck. It's something deeper. You don't choose your life based on logic. You choose it based on what you still lack. Think about it. A person who feels unsafe doesn't dream about purpose. He dreams about survival. A person who feels ignored doesn't chase growth. He chases attention. A person who feels empty doesn't look for meaning. He looks for distraction. And slowly, without realizing it, your entire life becomes a reflection of your unmet needs. This is where Maslow changes everything. He showed that human desire is not random. It's layered. Step by step. Level by level. At the bottom, your body is in control. Hunger. Sleep. Survival. Above that, your fear takes control. Safety. Stability. Control. Then comes something more dangerous, the need to belong. To be accepted. To be liked. To not feel alone. And this is where most people get trapped. Because they stop living for themselves, and start living for others. Their choices change. Their personality shifts, their identity becomes borrowed. And they don't even notice it happening. Then comes the next level, the need for respect. Status. Recognition. Validation. This is where people start chasing success, but not for growth. For approval. And finally, at the top of this invisible ladder, there is something rare. Something most people never reach. Self-actualization. Not money. Not validation. Not approval. But becoming who you were actually meant to be. But here's the truth, you cannot jump to the top. No matter how motivated you feel. No matter how many videos you watch. Because if something below is broken, it will pull you back down. Every single time. That's why you feel lost. Not because you're weak, but because something deeper inside you is still incomplete. And until you see it, you will keep fighting the wrong battle. There is a point in your life where survival is no longer the problem. You have food. You have safety. You are not in danger. And yet, something still feels wrong. Not outside, but inside. A quiet emptiness. This is where most people get confused. They think, I should be happy now. But they're not. Why? Because once your body feels safe, your mind starts craving something deeper. Connection. Love. Belonging. Acceptance. And this need is more powerful than you think. You don't just want people in your life, you want to feel seen. Understood. Valued. Chosen. And when this need is not fulfilled, your behavior begins to change. Slowly. Silently. You start chasing attention. You tolerate disrespect. You stay in the wrong relationships. Not because you're weak, but because your mind is trying to fix something deeper. Loneliness. This is the hidden trap of the belonging level. You can have money, you can have stability, you can even have success, but if you feel alone, your mind will still feel incomplete. That's why some people stay in toxic environments. That's why some people seek validation online. That's why some people lose themselves, just to be accepted. They are not chasing people, they are chasing a feeling. A feeling of belonging. And here's the dangerous part, if you don't understand this need, you will think your actions are choices. But they're not. They're reactions. Reactions to an emotional gap you haven't identified yet. Maslow didn't just describe needs, he revealed patterns. And at this level, the pattern is clear. People will sacrifice who they are, just to avoid feeling alone. So the real question is not, do you have people in your life? The real question is, do you feel connected, or just surrounded? Because there is a difference. A dangerous one, and until you understand that difference, you will keep chasing people, without ever feeling fulfilled. You think you want success. But your mind wants something else. It wants safety. And safety is dangerous. Because once your basic needs are met, food, stability, routine, your brain stops pushing you forward. It starts protecting what you already have. And that's where most people get stuck. Not at the bottom, but in the middle. Safe, but unfulfilled. You see, Maslow never said people naturally rise. He revealed something deeper. Each level is not just a step, it's a comfort zone. A psychological cage that feels like progress. Think about it. If your life is fine, your income is okay, your relationships are stable, why would your brain risk losing it? Why would it push you into uncertainty? It won't. Because your brain is not designed for growth. It's designed for survival. And survival hates risk. So instead of chasing your true potential, you start protecting your current life. You avoid challenges. You delay decisions. You overthink simple moves. Not because you're lazy, but because your mind is trying to keep you safe. And slowly, safety becomes your prison. This is why so many people feel stuck, even when their life looks okay. They are not failing, they are just not growing. They trade possibility for predictability. Dreams for routine. Expansion for control. And over time, they forget who they could have become. But here's the truth most people never accept: growth always feels unsafe. Every level above you requires you to lose something below you. Certainty. Comfort. Control. That's the cost. And most people are not willing to pay it. So they stay. Not because they choose to, but because their needs choose for them. And the longer you stay in comfort, the harder it becomes to leave. Because comfort doesn't feel like a trap, it feels like home. There comes a moment in your life when everything looks fine, but something inside you doesn't feel right. Not loud. Not painful. Just off. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're working, moving, living, and still, there's a quiet discomfort you can't explain. Most people ignore this feeling. They distract themselves. More work. More scrolling. More noise. Because facing it feels uncomfortable. But this moment is not a problem. It's a signal. A signal that something deeper is missing. Maslow understood this before most people ever did. He realized, human behavior is not driven by what we want, but by what we lack. And the dangerous part? You don't always feel what's missing directly. Instead, it shows up as confusion. Restlessness. A quiet sense of being lost. You think you need motivation. You think you need discipline. But what you actually need is alignment. Because when your needs are not aligned, your mind creates resistance. You start doubting yourself. Overthinking simple decisions. Losing interest in things you once enjoyed. Not because you are weak, but because your system is trying to tell you something. Something important. Something you've been avoiding. And here's the truth most people never realize: you are not stuck. You are misaligned. There's a difference. Being stuck means there's no way forward. But misalignment means you are moving in a direction your mind does not support. That's why everything feels heavy. That's why clarity feels distant. Because before you move forward, your brain is asking one simple question: are we safe enough to grow? And if the answer is no, it will slow you down. Silently. Without warning. And until you understand this, you will keep trying harder, without actually moving forward. But the moment you see it clearly, everything begins to shift. Not outside, inside. And that's where real change begins. You tell yourself, this is it. I'm going to change. You feel motivated. Focused. Ready. For a moment, it feels real. But then, something strange happens. You stop. You delay. You overthink. You go back to the same habits, the same patterns, the same life. And you don't understand why. So you blame yourself. I lack discipline. I'm just lazy. But that's not the truth. The truth is, your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Protect you. You see, every time you try to grow, you step into the unknown. And to your brain, the unknown is dangerous. It doesn't matter if the risk is small. It doesn't matter if the opportunity is good. Your brain doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about your safety. So what does it do? It pulls you back. Not aggressively, but subtly. Through doubt. What if it fails? Through delay. I'll start tomorrow. Through distraction. Let me just check this first. And before you realize it, you're back where you started. This is not weakness. This is programming. Maslow hinted at this in a deeper way. Every level of need creates a boundary. A limit your mind does not want to cross. Because crossing it means losing control. That's why growth feels uncomfortable. That's why progress feels unnatural. Because to grow, you have to go beyond what feels safe. And your brain resists that. Every time. This is why most people stay stuck. Not because they can't move forward, but because they don't understand what's pulling them back. They fight the wrong battle. They try harder. Push more. Force themselves. But force doesn't work when the resistance is internal. Real progress begins when you stop asking, how do I push forward? And start asking, what is my mind trying to protect me from? Because the moment you understand that, you stop fighting yourself. And start working with your own mind. There is a moment when everything looks fine, but nothing feels right. You're moving. Working. Doing what you're supposed to do. And yet, there's a quiet tension inside you. Not pain, just a feeling that something is off. Most people ignore this. They distract themselves. More work. More scrolling. More noise. Because facing it feels uncomfortable. But this moment is not random. It's a signal. A signal that something deeper is out of alignment. Maslow understood this. He showed that your life is not controlled by what you want, but by what you are missing. And here's the dangerous part. You don't always feel what's missing directly. Instead, it shows up as confusion, restlessness, a strange lack of clarity. You think, I need motivation. I need discipline. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is misalignment. Because when your needs are not aligned, your mind creates resistance. You start doubting simple decisions. You lose interest in things that once excited you. You feel stuck, even when you're moving. Not because you're weak, but because your system is trying to correct itself. Think about it. If your foundation is unstable, how can your mind focus on growth? If something inside you still feels unsafe, how can you move forward with confidence? You can't. So your brain slows you down. Silently. Without explanation. And until you understand this, you will keep trying harder, without going anywhere. But the moment you see it clearly, everything changes. You stop forcing progress. You start fixing alignment. Because the real question is not, what should I do next? The real question is my mind ready to move forward? You think growth means moving forward, becoming more, achieving something bigger. But that's not how it actually works. Because real growth doesn't feel like progress. It feels like loss. You lose comfort. You lose certainty. You lose the version of life you become used to. And that's why most people stop. Not because they can't grow, but because growth feels unsafe. Think about it. The moment you try to change your life, your mind resists. You start overthinking. You delay decisions. You doubt yourself. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing its job, protecting you from the unknown. This is the hidden truth of Maslow's hierarchy. Each level is not just a step up, it's a step away. Away from safety. Away from familiarity. Away from control. And your brain hates that. So it pulls you back. Again. And again. That's why you feel stuck, even when you know what to do. Because knowing is not enough. Your mind has to feel safe enough to let you act. And until that happens, you will stay where you are. Comfortable, but incomplete. This is where most people make a mistake. They wait to feel ready. They wait for confidence. They wait for the right moment, but that moment never comes. Because readiness is an illusion. It doesn't come before action. It comes after it. And here's the shift, the one that changes everything. You don't need to eliminate fear, you need to understand it. Because fear is not stopping you, it's pointing to what matters. Every level above you will feel uncomfortable. That's the price of growth. And most people are not willing to pay it. So they stay. In routines. In patterns. In a life that feels safe, but never truly fulfilling. But the moment you see this, you stop asking, why am I stuck? And you start asking, what am I afraid to leave behind? And that question changes everything. What if the problem was never your life, but the way you've been living it? You thought you needed more motivation, more discipline, more effort. But the truth is, you were trying to move forward, while something inside you was still holding on. And you didn't even see it. That's the real trap. Not failure. Not confusion. But unconscious control. The kind that feels like you. Every choice you made, every path you followed, every fear you avoided, wasn't random. It was your needs, quietly deciding for you. Keeping you safe. Keeping you stable. Keeping you exactly where you are. And now, for the first time, you can see it. You were never lazy. You were never lost. You were responding to something deeper. Something invisible. And the moment you realize that, something shifts. You stop forcing your life forward. You stop chasing things that never felt right. You stop trying to become someone else. Because now, you understand the real game. This isn't about climbing faster. It's about climbing right. Fixing what's below, so what's above can finally become real. Because the top of Maslow's pyramid is not success. It's not money. It's not validation. It's freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from approval. Freedom from the invisible patterns that were controlling you. And very few people reach this point. Not because it's impossible, but because it requires awareness. And awareness is uncomfortable. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to living unconsciously. You can't keep pretending. You don't know what's really happening inside you. And that's where your real life begins. Not when everything is perfect, but when everything becomes clear. So now the question is, are you still chasing what you think you want? Or are you ready to understand what's actually been driving you all along?